going on, everybody? This is Bobby G back again with another Saturday Shpiel. This is what happens when the sun goes down at 5 o'clock. Uh, you should get the lights on when you're doing stuff. This week, for the parashat reading, in Hebrew it's called Vayishlach, which means and he sent. Or as I prefer to call this message, when God calls you, answer. And the passages for this week come from Genesis chapter 32 verse 3 to chapter 36 verse 43, Hosea chapter 11 verse 7 to chapter 12 verse 12, Obadiah, the book of Obadiah, it's only 21 verses, so whole letter, Matthew chapter 2 verses 13 through 23, and Hebrews chapter 11, chapter 11, verses 11 through 20. Now, the commonality that you see through these is you see with regards a couple of things. One is with Esau and Jacob, or Edom and Israel, as it were, because later their names get changed. Esau becomes Edom, which means red, which he was hairy and apparently a red-haired dude, or red stew, I should say, is when Jacob fed it to him. And in Jacob's case, he gets renamed Israel, which means Prince of God. Now, in the time to pass, Jacob had fled, and if you read these passages in Genesis, Jacob wrestles with God, eventually meets his brother, and the two make peace, at least for a time. In the books of Hosea and Obadiah in particular, you see how there was beef at one time between Israel and Edom, or between Jacob and Esau, and eventually that kind of comes to bear later on as the nation of Edom and the nation of Israel, and the nations of Israel and Judah, when they become split northern and southern kingdoms, also have issues with each other. Nevertheless, in all of these passages, and even in the book of Matthew, because Herod, King Herod the Great, who, mind you, was not a Jew. Those who don't know, Herod the Great was half Nabatean through his mother, and his father was an Edomite general who helped the Romans, which is why Herod became the client king. So we see, even again, we see the commonalities that Jacob, Esau, and Esau is trying to rule over Jacob and trying to rule back, at least at that time. So again, we see this back and forth, and we see between the two and who isn't. But here's another thing we see. We see who is doing right before God and who listens to God. Jacob, who's renamed Israel, listens to the messenger of God. Obadiah and Hosea listen to God, the message of God, when God tries to call them, whether it's angels or directly. Same thing with Joseph, when Herod gets wind that the wise men had deceived him, because an angel strikes Joseph in a dream and says, "Up, flee with the child and his mother into Egypt and be there until I return, for Herod is going to seek the child to destroy him." And it's funny because we're in the season of Advent as we speak. So as I'm taking this message, and as you're watching this message, we are actually now in the season of what is known as Advent, which are the weeks that lead up to, as we know, Christmas, or as they say in the Messianic community, Messiah's birthday. That's a whole other discussion of whether it happened at this time or not, but I digress. The common theme is that when Israel fought with God and won, he got renamed, and he was able to meet with his brother, and the two were able to talk because he followed God's way. Same thing with the prophets and those who chose to turn back. Same with Joseph, when the angel told him, "Hey, you gotta get out of here. You know what I'm saying? You gotta slide and leave for a minute until I tell you," which he did. And eventually he moved back, but he didn't quite move to Judea. Instead of moving back to Judea, because his family's from Bethlehem, because Joseph was a family of David, he decided to move to Nazareth, or Nazareth, which is known of Yeshua that he shall be called Ha-Nazati, which means a Nazarene. Which is funny, for those who don't know, by the way, Bethlehem or Bethlehem means house of bread. So the bread of life himself, Jesus, was born in a place that is called the house of bread, literally. And the place that he lived, Nazareth or Nazareth, and became a Nazlati, Nazareth or Nazareth in Hebrew, translated literally means the branch. And in the prophecy of the prophets, it says that the branch of Jesse shall shoot forth, which means Jesse, father of David, which means the branch of the Davidic kingdom would come. And that is what Jesus, or Yeshua, as his name would have been, is he is the bread of life, and he is the branch of the stem of the tree of Jesse, who is coming forth during this season. So, as this time comes to pass, and as we are now in Advent, and as we are also coming to Hanukkah, which is the Feast of Dedication, which comes through the Maccabees, if you get a chance, that's part of the Apocrypha. For those of you who are Catholics who might watch this, or who know some Catholics or Orthodox folks, you can look at the Apocrypha into Maccabees, and you'll find out about that. Nice little treat to hold you over for the week. I myself, I only have a menorah. I do not have a Chanukiah, which is different. A regular menorah has only 7 candles. The candle in the center being the Shamash candle, and then you have the 3 on either side. Chanukiah is a special menorah that has 9 candles, 4 on each side, and then the Shamash candle in the center, which makes 9. But that's a whole story in of itself. But as Hanukkah and as Christmas come, we see the light of the world coming either way. You look at it. And what I want to encourage everyone to do is to see the light that comes to you. As your phones light up, and if God sends you a message, my encouragement to you is to answer the phone. You know, if God buzzes your phone, or if God, you know, if you've got your phone to heaven, as it were, on silent, you might not want to do that. Or if it blinks, and you get a message from God, kind of like that show, God Friended Me. If God tries to talk to you, you might want to answer that phone. Is all I'm saying. Just like they did in the passages that I read and quoted. Now, my encouragement to you is that in the midst of what seems like a dark time or a dark year that we've been living in, may the light of the world, which we see at Hanukkah, these coming days, and in Christmas, would be lights that would guide you so that you can see the path before you that you need to go, the path that was meant for you in these challenging times. My name is Bobby G. That's my Saturday Shpiel. Lord willing, I hope to see you all next week, right in the middle of Hanukkah. Peace.